Hey guys, Revo here, and today I'm gonna do the first of what I hope to be a series of videos called Revo's Real Talks. My aim with these videos is to be short, concise, to the point videos telling you guys what you want to know about different covenants, Soulbinds, Conduits, Legendaries, etc. as things have changed in 9.0.5. And I'm sure if you've watched my stream recently in the past month or so since 9.0.5, you've seen a lot of clips like this one. Yeah, I'm gonna crush this priest right now. I'm actually gonna shit on this priest. I'm sick of him. Get out of my arena, you motherfucker! Get out! Get out! Now the question is, how do you accomplish what just happened in that clip? The answer is Necrolord Warrior. In Necrolord Warrior 9.0.5, the Conqueror's banner, which is your on-use Covenant ability, has been changed from being crit-centric to being centered around mastery, buffing you and your two closest teammates within 15 yards with 400 mastery, 30% increased movement speed, and the inability to be reduced below 100% movement speed. This is extremely potent in a lot of cleave comps, melee cleaves especially. Some things like Ret Warrior is extremely good with it, Unholy TSG, Frost TSG, and even some comps like Turbo Cleave or Boomkin Warrior could have extremely high damage potential with how much mastery you give to your partner. This is just baseline. If you add into that the Soulbind trees, it gives you some pretty impressive damage boosts, and we'll go over that right now. We'll talk about Conduits and Soulbinds kind of at the same time here. In my opinion, the two best Soulbind trees for Necrolord Warrior are the first one, Plague Divisor Marileth, and the second one, Emini. In my opinion, Plague Divisor Marileth, the first tree, is the stronger of the two. My reasoning for this is twofold. First of all, I think that this tree is laid out slightly better, allowing you to pick Conduits without having to sacrifice others that would otherwise overlap, and I'll talk about this later. My second reasoning is for the third talent on the left-hand side, Ooze's Frictionless Coating. When reduced below 50% health, Ooze courses over you, granting a shield for 15% of your maximum health for 10 seconds, and it has an internal cooldown of 30 seconds. Now what this allows you to do is it allows you to play pretty offensive because you always have a failsafe. You always have a catch against classes or comps like Rogue Mage, against other cleaves, against things that may want to swap to you. The frictionless coating is going to save you 9 times out of 10, and I think that this is extremely important for the comps that Necrolord is potent in. The other thing about this tree, like I said, is that it's laid out slightly better. So in the bottom portion, the second to last tier, I like to put Brutal Vitality across from Safeguard so that I can choose, if I know a team's going to go me or someone else, whichever Soulbind I think is going to be better in that situation. In the other trees, you kind of can't do this as you have to sacrifice your second potency conduit for Safeguard fairly often if you want to take it, or you have to put Safeguard in a position where it may not be useful to you on occasion. Other than that, the standard Soulbinds are pretty much what you play. You want to play Stalwart Guardian, the die by the sword one. And the other one that you typically want to play is Mortal Combo, which is the Mortal Strike having a chance to trigger a second Mortal Strike. But there's one particular Soulbind conduit that is different than any other one. This one is Veteran's Repute. Veteran's Repute makes Conqueror's Banner increase your strength by an additional percentage, depending on the item level of the conduit. I have a 184 one, and it increases it by 13%. I believe the 145 one that's green gives you 10%, and the 226, I believe, gives you 15 or 16%. This is probably your most important conduit by far, as it gives you an additional amount of strength during your biggest cooldown. This is the only reason that I think that Emini can sometimes be played. The very first talent in the Emini Soulbind tree is Lead by Example, which allows Conqueror's Banner to increase your strength by an additional 5% and also increases the strength of 4 nearby allies by 2% for 20 seconds. You also gain 2% strength for each ally affected. Realistically, this is only ever going to give you 7% strength unless your healer's standing on top of you, but it can be extremely potent on top of the additional strength that you're getting from Veteran's Repute. This is how you see such large numbers like that 20k execute in the clip that we played earlier. Realistically though, I think that the frictionless coating outweighs the additional strength and primary stat that you give yourself and your teammates with lead by example, because sometimes playing defensive is better than playing offensive, and you're already going to have quite a bit of damage during banner. So I think that having the frictionless coating to keep you alive is almost always more valuable than having the additional strength during banner. The next thing we'll talk about are legendaries and stats for Necrolord warriors. So with 9.0.5, several legendaries for many classes, including warriors, were changed. One such legendary is the Battlelord legendary. Battlelord now gives your overpower a 40% chance to reset the cooldown on Mortal Strike and reduce the rage cost of your next Mortal Strike by 15. This is extremely nice for doing high single target damage because 15 rage is literally 50% off of your Mortal Strike. This allows you to possibly use talents like Rend in situations where you want to do high consistent damage and do a little bit of cleave, and I think that Battlelord is really nice for using this talent. It's extremely niche, but it does allow you to have the rage to be able to use Rend. I think that Battlelord is the highest single target consistent damage legendary for Necrolord warrior, and it's probably the one that I use the most when I'm looking for damage. The only other legendary in my opinion that competes with this is Memory of Sephuz. Sephuz is a very easy legendary to get as well, and it stacks with Orc Racial, making Orc with Sephuz an extremely nice combination. Sephuz reduces the effectiveness of crowd control effects by 10%. It also gives you 80 stats for 15 seconds anytime you successfully apply a loss of control effect to an enemy. This includes pummeling them, charge rooting them, fearing them, or storm bolting them. It has an internal cooldown of 30 seconds, which means that you can pretty much have it up off of cooldown. It's very nice because of the Orc Racial stack, but I don't think that it's better than Battlelord for other races. In my opinion, the only other damage type legendary that is competitive is potentially Unhinged. When Bladesword is active, you automatically cast 2 Mortal Strikes at random nearby enemies. This could be really nice in cleave situations such as Unholy TSG, when you use Banner in conjunction with their 2-minute cooldowns and do a lot of cleave. I don't think it's better than the other two, but it has its potential, and if you were already Kyrian and have this legendary, it can serve you well as Necrolord as well. The last legendary that I would 100% recommend crafting is Misshapen Mirror. Misshapen Mirror increases the duration of spell reflection by 60% and also applies it to your nearest ally. This is an extremely nice legendary against casters, Shadow Priests, Mages, Boomkins, Ellie Shamans, because it gives you a spell reflection for your teammate. Whether you use it on CC or just damage, it's extremely nice and extremely annoying for the other team to deal with. I would 100% craft this after you decide which DPS legendary you want to craft first. Going along with the legendaries, stats actually differ depending on which one you want to go with. Similar to Kyrian and Night Fae, in my opinion, the best stat priority for Necrolord is versatility as your first priority, then haste, then mastery, and then crit. It's arguable that your stats can shift around depending on what you're looking for. If you have gem slots, you can actually decide to go for a different secondary stat than versatility after hitting 30%. Smexon's been playing with crit, I've been playing with mastery. I think both can be potentially good, but I don't think that one is necessarily leagues above the other one. The thing that I'm talking about with being able to switch stats is if you do decide to craft and play the Battlelord legendary, you can actually afford to drop a little bit of haste because your rage generation is so much better. When I change to a Battlelord, I swap out my chest and my legs from haste versatility pieces to versatility mastery pieces. This allows me to have a little bit extra damage and not necessarily have any waste from the haste. I think that this is actually kind of nice, and I think that if you're playing Battlelord, you should probably do this. As any other legendary, your stats are pretty much going to be the same. Haste verse is your number one priority, mastery is then next, and then crit is probably the worst stat in my opinion. The idea with stacking crit as Necro is similar to the idea of stacking crit as Venthyr, but in my opinion, it's just much worse. You can stack crit and fish for large crits during your Conqueror's banner, but if you don't get them, and you don't get a kill inside the banner duration, I feel like crit is just a much worse stat outside of that. Haste and verse paired with a little bit of mastery, gives you nice, smooth rage generation, as well as high consistent damage, and you don't have to rely on one-shotting someone within your 2-minute cooldown. It can be a lot of fun, but I don't think it's the best stat. The last thing that we'll talk about is the general playstyle of Necrolord Warrior. As I said before, Necrolord Warriors typically shine the best in comps where their partners benefit greatly from mastery. Although 400 mastery is quite a lot for arms warriors, and it's going to make you do a lot of damage yourself, giving a partner that benefits greatly from mastery, or mastery is their best stat, is going to be much more damage than anything that you can put out yourself. The greatest example of this is Ret Paladins. Mastery is Ret Paladin's best stat, and it literally just increases the holy damage that they do, which is pretty much every single ability. The other huge benefit is that Conqueror's Banner is a 2-minute cooldown, which lines up perfectly with Avenging Wrath, which is also a 2-minute cooldown. Using these two together creates situations where you're going to do extremely high damage, and this is the name of the game for the Necrolord Warrior. Realistically, you become more of a support class than you already were, keeping your teammate alive with Intervene, Rally, Master Flex, Stormbolt, and other utility objects, and also buffing them offensively with your Necrolord's Banner. I think that Necrolord is a lot of fun if you have a team that has high coordination. Playing with a Ret Pally and a Holy DK, Frost DK, even with an Enhance or potentially a Boomkin, if you have good communication and you have a consistent team, Necrolord is the way to go. I don't think that Necrolord would be very fun if you're pugging, if you're doing LFG, or if you don't have consistent teammates. The reason for this is that, like I said, it requires coordination. You have to kind of know what you want to do beforehand, and your teammate has to know too. I think that Venthyr is probably the better choice if you pug, if you don't have a consistent team, because you kind of get to do everything by yourself. This also means that 2s as Necrolord is not very fun. I almost always lose mirrors to warriors that are Venthyr, and a lot of other matchups where you would have won as Venthyr against high armor targets, because Necrolord really just doesn't pump the damage that Venthyr does. I think that it's a lot of fun, but you really have to have consistent teammates, and you really have to know the game plan beforehand. It's as simple as stacking cooldowns, but if you don't do it, your banner is nearly wasted, and it's not going to be nearly as potent as it could have been. All in all, I think that Necro is a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it greatly, and I think that the rotation and playstyle is more rewarding than Venthyr, Kyrian, or Nightfey, and I think that it can be a lot of fun if you have teammates that know the game plan, or that can go along with planning things around your banner. Like I said, for LFG players or people that pug and don't have consistent teammates, it may not be the best choice, but I think that you can still have fun with it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to put out more of these Revo Reels talks, where I just condense as much information on a particular topic as I can into a video in a podcast style. If you guys have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, follow the channel, and make sure to follow me on Twitch and Twitter at RevoLOL Warrior.